Hey everyone, welcome back to day 2 of our Pandas series. If you recall from day 1, we set up our environment and got a feel for Pandas basic data structures like series and data frames. Today, we have received a request from Panda Pizza's CFO and operations manager. They are worried about data scattered all over. Some data in CSV files, some in Excel, some in a Parquet file, and even a small table that's just in a Word doc or an email as a Python dictionary. They want a quick snapshot. How many records do we have? What columns exist? Is everything consistent? So we load everything into Pandas to see how it looks. Let's jump in. So these are the topics that we will cover in today's video, which is part of our Pandas playlist. Okay, so we will start with creating data frames from a Python dictionary and a list of lists. Okay, and then we will go on and we will load data from existing files into data frames. So that's the second thing that we will see. And we will also take a look at this interesting file format, which is Parquet. So these files are specifically optimized to deal with large data sets. You will see that the same data, when in the form of a CSV, it will take more space, more memory space than a Parquet file. Okay, and again, an Excel file will take even more space. So this is something that we will see today. And finally, we will also take a look at how we can inspect the data once we have loaded it into data frames. And for that, we will see some interesting and useful built-in functions which come along with Pandas. So let's get started. Hello and welcome back. So here we are again in VS Code, and we have opened the folder that we have created in day 1 where we set up our environment, and this is our interactive Python notebook with which we were playing in day 1. Okay, so as part of day 2, we are getting deeper into data frames specifically, and we will see how to create data frames once more. We had seen it in day 1, but let's see it once more, and then let's take a look at how to load data into data frames. Okay, and then we will see how to inspect data and ensure the health of our data. So this brings us closer to fulfilling the requests that we got from management, and we'll also discuss a quick plan of how we would go about fulfilling the request we got from management, but we will not go that deep today. There are going to be future videos where we will discuss some aspects in greater detail. Let's get started. So let's say we have a dictionary that looks something like this. So I've copied it and pasted it over here, which has data on promotions. Okay. Now let's say this data is not yet in any file and it could be just with marketing. Now let's go ahead and convert this dictionary into a data frame. Now we have seen that data frames have inbuilt functions which come in handy, and you can label the rows as well as the columns. So we have discussed that in detail in day 1. But over here, there's one more aspect or one more benefit of loading this into a data frame. Okay, so when we do that, it means that this small but important data is now in the same analytics environment, and we're using Python and Pandas over here as our larger CSV, Excel, and Parquet files. It's all in one place within our code and memory, making it easy to merge or reference data later. Okay, so in other words, we are centralizing even small sets of data into the same Pandas environment. Now it's easier to combine this data with bigger data sources later, and we are sure that everything is in one place. So that's always a huge benefit, especially when you're working on large projects. Now let's go ahead and convert this into a data frame. Now we have seen how we can do that in day 1, but let's repeat it once more over here. So you can say df underscore promo. Okay, so that's we are just calling this data frame as df underscore promo, and this is going to equal pd dot data frame. And again, remember, PD is how we imported Pandas over here. Import Pandas as PD. Okay, so that's why we have to use PD dot data frame, because data frame is something that is provided by Pandas. So PD dot data frame, and then we'll have to pass in the data, which is the promo data over here. Okay, so let's say promo underscore data. All right. So PD dot data frame promo data, and then let's also write TF underscore promo to take a look at how our data frame looks like. And you can see that over here we have our data frame. Now you could also make a data frame from a list of lists. Let's also take a look at that. So for example, let's say I have a list of lists, which again, let me just call it as promotion. And this is a list of lists. So you could have values like, let's say you have coupons A, then you have another coupon B, and you have another coupon C. And let's say in this second list over here, you have the percentage discounts. So in the first case, you have 10% discount. For coupon B, you have, let's say, 20% discount. And for coupon C, you have 30% discounts. Okay. Now you can convert this into a data frame in a similar manner. DF underscore promotions is equal to PD dot data frame. And then you just need to pass in the data promotions. And that's it. Okay. And let's also take a look at how this looks. DF promotions. Now, if you run this block, you can see that you have this list of lists converted into a data frame. So far we have seen how to create data frames. Let's now proceed and load data into a data frame. And again, we'll also see that you may have to install a few dependencies if you want to load data from an Excel or a Parquet file. So let's see that as well. First of all, let's load data from a CSV file. Now, if your CSV file is in a different location, you would have to specify the path. But let me place my CSV file in the same level where I have my day.ipynb file. Okay, so I'm going to have my orders.csv file placed over here. So let me go ahead and do that. So again, it's just opening this folder and placing the data over here. Now I have placed a link to this data below the video. So if you want to access the same file, the same data file and work along, you can do that as well. So in that case, you would have to download that and place it in the same folder over here. Okay. And if your data is in some other folder, you'll have to specify the path when you load the data from that particular file into a data frame. So let me go ahead and do that. All right. So you can see that I have pasted my data files into the same folder. So I have customers.csv over here. I have forecast.parquet over here, orders.csv over here, and products.xlsx over here. Okay. As our next step, let's now read orders.csv. So you can see that it's a comma separated file. The data is comma separated. So that's what a CSV file is. So we are going to load this data into a data frame. And let me open a new code block, and we are going to import orders.csv. And let's call our data frame df underscore orders. Okay. Now this is going to equal pd dot read underscore csv, and we have orders.csv. That's the name of our file. Now again, if your file is in some other folder, you'll have to specify the path over here. And once we do that, let's take a look at the data frame as well. So df underscore orders, and let's execute this block. And you can see that I have imported, or I have read the CSV file orders.csv, and now I've made a data frame out of it, df underscore orders. So you can see it has these columns, and then it has a lot of rows. Okay, so it doesn't show everything. So these are the first 4 rows, and then you have the last few rows over here. So it says a total of 1000 rows and 8 columns. So all of this data was just loaded like that into our data frame. Again, if you have a lot of data, that's why manipulating data with Pandas is highly efficient. So we have seen how we can read a CSV file and make it a data frame. Now let's also go ahead and see how you can read a Excel file, okay, and again make it another data frame. So we have a file products over here, which is an Excel file. Now let's go ahead and try to read this and then you will see that it will throw some error because probably we may not have some dependencies installed for it. And once we get that error, let's go ahead and install the required dependency, and after that we will come back and again read this file. So that's our next task. Okay, so again let me open a new code block over here, and I'm going to say df underscore products is equal to pd dot read excel. Okay, so you can see it provides suggestions as well, and then the name of the file is products.xlsx. Okay, and you can also specify the sheet, because in an excel you can have multiple sheets, and you can say sheet underscore name is equal to sheet 1. All right, now let's go ahead and execute this, and you can see that we are getting an error. It says module not found error, and the reason for that is you need a dependency called open pyxl. Now let's just open a terminal and ensure that your virtual environment is active. We have discussed in day 1 how you can activate it, and in Mac you will have to do source, and the name of our virtual environment is pandas tut. So pandas tut bar bin bar activate. So that's how you activate it, and if your virtual environment is active, you will get the name of the virtual environment over here in your terminal, and over here let me just do pip install open pyxl. Okay, now it's done, and now when you go ahead and try to read the excel file, you will see that you'll not get an error. So let's again run this over here, and you can see that it is run, and it has created df underscore products, which is a data frame, and let's take a look at it as well over here, and you can see that this is how the data frame looks like. You have these columns, and then you have 1000 rows. Okay, so far we have seen how to read from a CSV file and how to read from an Excel file and create data frames. Okay, now the third thing that we are going to see is how to read from a Parquet file. A Parquet file is more efficient, remember, for large or complex data, especially in big data environments. So it is just optimized file format to store large amounts of data with lower memory requirements. Okay, so we have a sample Parquet file over here, which is forecast.parquet. So let's go ahead and see how we can read this data into a data frame. And again, don't worry too much about Parquet. It's just another format like CSV and Excel, but it is optimized for large amounts of data. So let's see how we can read this data. So we have seen read underscore Excel can be used to read from an Excel file, and we have seen that read underscore CSV can be used to read from a CSV file. So similarly, to read from a Parquet file, we will use read underscore Parquet. So let's have another code block over here, and I'll say df underscore forecast is equal to pd dot read underscore Parquet, and then I'll just have to specify the path. Now again, I've placed the file in the same folder as my interactive Python notebook is. So I can just say the name of the file over here, which is forecast.parquet. Okay. Now when we go ahead and run this block, we will Parquet files is not installed, but there's no problem. We'll take a look at the error. It will specify what is missing, and then we'll just install it. Okay, we'll just get it. So you can see over here it says unable to find a usable engine, tried using PyArrow fast Parquet. A suitable version of PyArrow or fast Parquet is required for Parquet support. So you'll have to install this. Okay, so let's try with PyArrow. Again, let me just open a terminal and ensure that your virtual environment is active over here, and then let's just do pip install PyArrow. All right, so we have installed PyArrow. Now let's take a look at whether it's working. So let's again run this code block, and you can see that it worked. Now let's take a look at how it looks. So we have df underscore forecast, which is our data frame, and you can see that it has these rows. Okay, so it has these columns, and this is our data. So we have successfully read data from a CSV file, from an Excel file, and from a Parquet file into respective data frames. Now again, remember, why load data frames in Pandas at all? There are various benefits to it, because once data is in a Panda data frame, we can easily combine data sources. Like you can combine a CSV file and an Excel file, or with dictionary based data. Okay, so you can easily combine data sources, you can clean and transform the data consistently, and you can analyze data with built in methods like grouping, aggregating, filtering, etc. And you can also easily visualize or export data to share it with others. So this is the foundation of modern data analysis in Python. So everything we do next, from advanced filtering to building final reports, depends on having each data set loaded as a data frame. Okay. Now in our case, we had received a request from management, right? So what we will do is, we will go ahead and note down how many rows are there in each data frame, what are the columns in each data frame, and we will check whether there are any immediate red flags like missing data or wrong data types. And this alone can be turned into a short bullet point report, which we can give to the executives which have requested us to check whether the data is in order or not, right? Now, today in this video, we'll not be creating a final polished report for business, but Pandas, remember, makes it easy to summarize tables to Excel or CSV and create visualizations, etc. But over here, as a next step, what we are going to do is, we will go ahead and check the sanity, and we will inspect the data that we have loaded into these data frames. And to do that, we will make use of a few interesting built-in functions like .head, .tail, .sample. To start with, let's take a look at these three. Okay, so we have three data frames: DF forecast, and then we have DF products, and then we have DF orders over here. Okay, now let's say we want to see the first few rows of data in DF orders. So what you can do is, you can do DF orders .head. Okay, now if you do this, notice you will get the first 5 rows over here. So these are the first 5 rows, and again, we have seen that there are 1000 rows in this data frame. So you've easily got the first 5 rows. So this helps you to quickly take a look at how the data looks like in this particular data frame. Now if you wanted the first 10 rows, you can just put 10 over here, and you can see that you get the first 10 rows. Similarly, if you want to see and take a look at the last 5 rows, you can do df underscore orders dot tail. Okay, and you can see that this gives you the last 5 rows. Okay, and similarly, you can specify if you want the last 9 rows, you can have a 9 over here, and you will get the last 9 rows. So these help us to quickly peek at the top rows, the bottom rows, and in case you want to take a look at a few sample rows randomly, then you can just use df underscore orders dot sample. Okay, so this will give you a sample row. So this is one row. Now let's say you want 5 sample rows, so you can put 5 over here, and now notice you're getting 5 sample rows. Now an interesting thing to note is that if you run this again, you will get another 5 rows. Again, you'll get another 5 rows. So you're getting 5 rows randomly, and that will also help you quickly take a look at how the data is. Next, let's see how we can take a look at the attributes of a data frame. And for that, let's use the next data frame which we had, which is df underscore products. Okay, so we have df underscore products, and we are trying to take a look at its attributes, which is things like shape, size, columns, index. So for that, I can just say df underscore products dot shape. If I do that, notice it tells me how many rows and columns are there in this data frame. And if I do dot size, it will give me the total number of cells, which is the number of rows into the number of columns. So that's 1000 into 5, which is 5000. If I want to take a look at the columns, I can just do dot columns. So these are the columns. Okay, and if I want to take a look at the rows, I can say dot index. So these are the indices. Now if you want to check each columns data type, you can do df underscore products dot info. Okay, so you can see that you have every column and you have the data type. Now again, this is important because, like for example, over here you have price, and for price you have floating point over here. But if this was object, it would indicate that probably you would need to clean or convert data, because as we have seen in day 1, in a data frame, every data type in a column would be the same data type. So if you have a mixture of floating point numbers and strings, then Pandas will treat that as an object data type. So instead of float, if you have object over here, it would indicate that all the data points which are supposed to be a number or a floating point number are not that. Probably somebody has entered a string data by mistake. So that would be an indication that probably you would have to clean or convert data. So we have seen that .info can be used to quickly take a look at the data types of each column. And then you have df underscore products dot describe. So if you do this, notice that you will get quick summary statistics for numeric columns, things like count, mean, standard deviation, min, max, etc. This is perfect for verifying if your average order amount is within an expected range. Okay, again, something very useful to quickly check the sanity of the data that you have. From a business perspective, always remember that management's biggest worry is data inconsistency. By using .info and .describe, we can do a quick health check on each data set. This helps us answer questions like, do we have XYZ orders as expected, or are some missing? Is the average product price around, let's say, $10 as planned, or do we see a lot of outliers? Things like that can be quickly understood using the .info and .describe functions, which we can directly use out of the box with Pandas. And that brings us to the end of day 2. Our key takeaways are: we have seen data frames unify data from multiple sources, whether it's a dictionary, a CSV file, an Excel file, a Parquet file, into one analysis workflow. Secondly, we have discussed how you can quickly inspect your data early to identify potential issues before you dive into complex transformations. And then once you're ready, you can quickly share these insights by exporting or building simple reports, which we will see in the future. All right, so we are on our journey of mastering Pandas. And again, this is a crucial fundamental skill for becoming an AI ML engineer. And that's it for day 2, folks. We have seen how to create a data frame from a simple dictionary if the data isn't in a typical file yet, and how to load huge files from CSV and Excel and Parquet. Then we used .head, .tail, .info and .describe to quickly assess the shape and health of our data. Why is this useful? Because everything is now in one place, our Pandas environment. That sets the stage for easy cleaning, merging, and eventually building a final report for management. Tomorrow, we'll dive deeper into selecting specific rows and columns to answer more detailed questions. So this takes us further in our journey of becoming hands-on with Pandas, which is crucial for every aspiring AI ML engineer. Stay tuned.